Keiki Kiryuu wakes from a pleasant dream after his sister Mizuha sleepwalks into his bed. Mizuha makes them breakfast and he complains about his lack of a girlfriend. Sayuki Takahara, the calligraphy club president, summons him to help clean the club room, which she trashed. First year Koga Yuika and second year Mao Nanju arrive to help, in addition to Mizuha, who loves to clean. After they finish cleaning the club room, all the girls leave and Keiki goes to return the cleaning supplies. He complains about all the happy couples he sees. When he returns to the club room, he finds a love letter addressed to himself, in addition to a small gift. Excited over the confession, he meets with his friend Shuma Akiyama to discuss the letter, and they decide to call the girl who left the confession Cinderella. Shuma is certain that one of the girls who helped clean the calligraphy club with him must be the Cinderella. Keiki returns to the club room to investigate and runs into Sayuki, who notices him looking tired. She invites him to nap in the club room whenever he wants. At the library, Yuika teases him over his size preferences. At gym class, he reports to Shuma that both girls were acting normally. Shuma tells him to keep investigating, and Keiki notices Mao watching them before he is knocked out. He wakes up in the nurse's office with Mao watching over him, who is watching him because she is bored. After school, Sayuki and Keiki run into a lost dog, and watching the dog return to his owner, Sayuki professes she yearns for physical touch and is jealous of the dog. He brushes her hair and Sayuki gives him a kiss on the cheek. After his sister tells him that Sayuki was the last to leave the club room, he struggles with how to confront her over the letter. He can't decide what to do, but is accidentally overheard by Sayuki, who thinks he is confessing and agrees to go on a date with him. When they have dessert together, she thanks him for joining the calligraphy club, which was on the verge of collapse due to a lack of new members. He starts to question her feelings and she quickly runs away embarrassed. After the date, she keeps avoiding him. Mao gives him some romantic advice on confronting Sayuki, so after school he stalks her and follows her. He confidently states that he knows her secret, and Sayuki asks if he can accept her even knowing her secret. He agrees and she invites him to the club room the next day. The next day at the club room, he realizes that she misheard him, and her secret is that she secretly wants to be treated like a dog. She asks Keiki to make her his pet and reveals she is a hardcore masochist. Keiki realizes that Sayuki is jealous of dogs because they have masters. Keiki returns to his investigations on Cinderella and thinks that she may have hid herself in the room when he found the letter, which means the girl who was last in the room may not have been Cinderella. At the library, Keiki and Yuika are working together at the front desk. Sayuki appears and pranks Keiki by blowing into his ear. After he scolds her for acting out in the library, she starts to tease him. Yuika arrives and is angry with how close Sayuki is to Keiki. Sayuki tells Yuika about their dessert date and Yuika runs off. Sayuki picks out a book on dog obedience training and is extremely excited to read it. Yuika interrogates Keiki, and she asks him to take her on a date to make up for how close he has gotten to Sayuki. That night, his sister gives him advice on relationships. He follows his sister's advice and the date goes well, as they watch a movie, eat dinner, and go shopping. They don't notice Mao noticing them from afar. At the mall, Keiki saves her from some boys that were bothering her and she gives him a kiss on his forehead. On the train ride home, he thinks about how they first met and how they became friends slowly over time in the library, as Yuika is mixed race and is often avoided by her classmates. The next day, Keiki receives a message from Yuika telling him to meet her after school, and Shuma is certain that she is Cinderella. He goes to meet her, and she reveals she was so impressed with his date that she would like him to be her slave. After he refuses, she tries to bribe him, and then starts punishing him for talking back to his master. Yuika is very excited to start training him as he faints. The next day, she leaves another present in his locker, since her previous attempt to bribe him failed. She keeps trying to bribe him, as she considers him a very special person and the one she wants to make a slave. Later, she recites to him a cute poem of a princess who locks her prince up in her dungeon because she loves him so much, and the story ends with the prince loving servitude. He quickly runs away. At his locker, he finds blackmail of him and Sayuki threatens to distribute the photo if he stops avoiding the club room. At the club room, he finds Sayuki handcuffed in a maid outfit. She has dropped her key and she asks Keiki to free her. He tries to run, but she begs him as she needs to go to the toilet. He frees her and she hugs him as she wants to leave her scent on him. She is sad that he keeps avoiding her and asks again for her to be her master. He struggles with the difficult moral choice and runs away. Meeting up with Shuma again, Shuma points out Cinderella could still be Mao since Mao is always staring at Keiki. He wonders at the possibility and catches Mao staring at them. The next day, he is ambushed by Yuika and is tricked into closing his eyes. She leads him into a classroom where she ties him up. She states she caught him with Sayuki the day before, and as punishment he must declare his devotion to her and kiss her feet. Or if he decides not to, she will take his first kiss. Sayuki arrives in time, tracking them down as she has been stalking Keiki. The two argue and reveal from when they first met they each had claimed Keiki to be either their master or slave. Mao finds them and takes Keiki away. She calls him an idiot and that he is acting too close to the girls. The next day, Mao is a little cold to Keiki. Yuika apologizes for the previous day and says that he should make up with Mao. At the club room, Sayuki also apologizes and urges Keiki to speak to Mao. Keiki finds Mao and appeals to their friendship. She asks that as a favor to hang out with him and Shuma. At the arcade, they have fun playing games. But when Shuma almost falls on Keiki, Mao takes pictures. After Shuma leaves, Mao thanks Keiki but professes that she would like to move forward in the relationship as a duo rather than a trio. Before Keiki can answer, it starts to rain and they look for shelter. Since Mao sneezes, Keiki goes to get some hot cocoa but sees her looking at Shuma on her phone. Keiki believes she has a crush on Shuma but Mao denies it and goes home. Yuika and Sayuki both comment the next day that he still doesn't seem on good terms with Mao. He goes home and his sister comforts him and gives him advice on how to approach Mao. When he confronts her, she is extremely frustrated with him as she keeps losing sleep at night thinking about him. Keiki begs for forgiveness and promises to do anything for them to be friends again. Since Keiki promised anything, Mao asks Keiki to start a romantic relationship with Shuma. Keiki realizes that Mao is always tired because she is staying up all night writing a boys' love comic, often inspired by his friendship with Shuma, and that her glances at them were her hints for them to get together. She announces that he must not get a girlfriend, otherwise it would prevent her from being able to write her comics. Depressed that she was not Cinderella, Keiki returns to his locker to find another envelope. But instead of a love confession, it's blackmail instead. He goes to the club room and sees Yuika in a bunny costume, and is told to take pictures of her. Yuika has decided to join the calligraphy club to spend more time with Keiki, at the cost of having to wear a bunny costume. Mao has also decided to join the club, but doesn't have to wear a bunny costume as she bribes Sayuki with manga. Yuika and Sayuki declare war on each other and the president sends Yuika off to go get tea for the club. Sayuki shows Keiki the manga starring himself and Yuika manages to see it. She is horrified with its debauchery but is unable to stop reading it. Keiki realizes that the calligraphy club has turned into a haven for degenerates. After school, he is confronted by Koharu Atori, who is behind the blackmail. She starts to confess her feelings, but he discovers that she has feelings for his friend Shuma. He sees in the room that there are several pictures of Shuma on the walls. She blackmails him into helping her with confessing to Shuma, and reveals she was able to take the photo because she is the president of the astronomy club and is good at telescopes. Keiki doesn't understand why she would have difficulty asking Shuma out, as she fits Shuma's preference. But she reveals that she is a senior and therefore too old for Shuma. Later, Keiki meets Mizuha and helps her with groceries. She wears her school uniform for him, and he gets an idea that Koharu can disguise her senior status by dressing as an underclassman. Keiki introduces Koharu to Shuma and it goes well, and the two are able to exchange contact information and take a picture together. In return for his help, Koharu helps Keiki with his Cinderella investigation. After laying out the facts, Koharu suggests that Cinderella could have been an outsider and none of the original 4 girls. A possible 5th Cinderella candidate, but one that had to have been in the vicinity of the club building the same day. He goes to the club room to continue his investigations and finds Yuika there in a maid costume. He leaves as everyone there is useless. He runs into Ayano Fujimoto, the school student council vice president, and ends up in a compromising position. She reveals she is attracted to him. He goes to his teacher to see if she knew anyone in the club building the same day as Cinderella, and she reveals she saw Ayano that day. Ayano later approaches him at a park bench and gives him some homemade sweets. She also sits very close to him. Before she leaves, she gives him a hug. He goes to Koharu for help, and she uses her stalking skills to help gather information. She found that Ayano often visits the club room on student council business and is usually a reserved and expressionless person. Keiki returns to the club room to find Yuika and falls for a trap she had set. She decides to punish him by massaging his chest, but he has an accident and she runs off. Later, Ayano comes to audit the club room and its budget. He volunteers for trash pickup as a way to get close to her, and Sayuki overhears and also volunteers. Sayuki is threatened when Ayano starts to move close to Keiki, and leads Keiki away to scold him for getting close to other girls. She licks him to leave her scent on him, and he uses his grandfather's advice on dogs to get rid of her. It has the opposite effect as she loves it. Sayuki leaves and Ayano accidentally falls into the river. Keiki helps her and hands her a sweater to dry herself off. She hugs it and thanks him. The next day, he updates Shuma on his recent investigations after their badminton match, where Mao was watching them all game. They discuss the possibility that Ayano is Cinderella, and they accidentally run into her. However, when Keiki starts to approach, she backs away and quickly runs off. Keiki later meets Ayano in the student council room where she has set up music and a dessert she made herself. She hugs and sits very close to him and soon falls asleep. He is happy to finally be in a normal relationship and falls asleep himself. However, when he wakes up, he finds Ayano trying to remove his pants. She explains that she is attracted only to his smell, and that he has the smell of destiny. She also reveals that she set up the music, food, and ambience of the student council room to get him to fall asleep so she could steal his underwear for its smell. She also ran away from him after his sports match because the smell was too overwhelming, and she goes to his locker in the club room for the smell. Hanging out with Shuma and Koharu, he feels like a third wheel. He tells her the next step is a double date, and he needs to decide on who to take on the double date. He finally decides on Sayuki as she would be the least disruptive. He lets her know the ruse Koharu has to pretend to be an underclassman at the bowling alley. They have fun bowling, but Shima wonders why Koharu wears a hoodie all the time. That night, Koharu reveals that Shima has been texting her a lot and invited her to a holiday trip. She thanks Keiki for his help and tells him she will confess to Shima today with her true uniform. She walks home with Shima to the location where she fell in love with him and confesses. However, he cannot accept her confession as he only likes younger girls. Keiki and Shima meet and the two friends feel terrible for Koharu. Keiki scolds his friend, and Shima reveals that he noticed Koharu too on the day she fell in love with him and wondered if he would meet her again. He feels heartbroken for breaking her heart. Keiki goes to cheer up Koharu, and Shima arrives asking if they can start as friends instead. After a little teasing, she accepts, but he turns on the lights and sees the astronomy club full of his pictures. The next day, Keiki accidentally walks in on Mizuha. He tells her about what's happening with the girls at school and she forgives him. Sayuki suddenly visits and reveals she has brought a dog costume. She visited because she was feeling restless at home and wanted to play. When he refuses to treat her like a dog, she threatens to show the manga about him with Shima to his sister. He is forced to pet her head and then rub her stomach. In exchange, she hugs him and they are caught by his sister. Sayuki leaves soon after, and then Yuka arrives. She has brought a man bunny costume for him to wear, and he refuses until she blackmails him. He wears the man bunny costume and Yuka takes pictures of him. She accidentally falls on top of him and they are caught by his sister. Yuka leaves soon after. Mao calls him and tells him that both the other girls planned the visit and the blackmail, and that she would have visited as well if she didn't have a deadline to finish her next manga. When he returns to his room, he finds the Cinderella undergarments gone, and reports the theft to Shima and Koharu. They believe that since they were taken while Sayuki and Yuka visited him, one of them could have been Cinderella trying to erase her tracks. Keiki takes Sayuki to the theme park to investigate the possibility she is Cinderella. He plans to use the wind in her skirt to confirm she is Cinderella, and takes her on various rides but fails. On the Ferris wheel, she turns the tables by licking his face. They go to see some calligraphy and Keiki feels himself running out of time. On their way home, he orders her to lift her skirt but finds out that she was going commando the whole day. The next day they are embarrassed and Sayuki says she won't be going commando on dates again. After Yuka teases him, Sayuki starts avoiding him, and when he confronts her, she is mad that she hasn't been punished for going commando on the date. He decides to confront her about Cinderella, and she confesses to going into his room and stealing his boxers so that she can wear them. The next day he visits Yuka to investigate if she was the thief. While she is making tea, he investigates her undergarments but is caught, providing Yuka with more blackmail. Yuka soon takes advantage of the blackmail by forcing him to do favors for her, such as bringing her food. He is determined to free himself from her, but is forced to become her butler for a date, where he has to help her with her shopping. She goes to take a shower and then calls for his help because she saw a spider, but then she throws him out for entering the bathroom. As punishment, she steps on his head. She relaxes against him and he finds that she also took boxers from his room. He uses this fact to break his bond of servitude. Keiki reports his finding with Shima, who has returned from a date with Koharu and found that Koharu has several volumes of notes on his daily movements. He meets Mao and he agrees to pose for manga. She later reveals that she was asked by her editor to write a shoujo manga and that since she needs inspiration on relationships, she will be his girlfriend so that she can draw his reactions. Tired from a long day of student council work, Ayano meets Seiki for a hug and to recharge with his scent. To thank him, she gives him tickets for the swimming pool. He invites Shima and Koharu, who decline, but notices the timestamp of a photo Koharu took of Shima and has a plan to find Cinderella once and for all. He invites all the girls of the calligraphy club and his sister to the pool. Sayuki and Yuka fight over the right to go on the slide with him, and Yuka beats Sayuki in a water gun fight. Yuka finds the slide way too scary for her. Sayuki has an accident at the wave pool, and Mao almost slips and falls. Mizuha is relaxing on her own in the indoor pool as she has a leg cramp. Keiki carries her out of the pool, and it reminds them of when he carried her after a leg injury when they were kids. She reveals that she saw Mao's manga of him and Shima and accepts him even if he has a preference for men. They meet Koharu, who is working at her part-time job. She is running a competition looking for the cutest confession. All the girls enter the competition. Sayuki is first and her confession scores her 92 points. Yuka and Mao both score slightly higher at 95 and 98 points. However, when Mizuha confesses her familial love and scores 120 points. After the competition, Keiki confronts Mizuha and reveals that she is Cinderella. Keiki reveals that the trip was a trap. Koharu and Shima determined that Cinderella probably hid the underpants in her bag after stealing them from Keiki. Therefore, by announcing a surprise trip to the pool involving all the girls, Cinderella would be forced to wear them after changing out of her swimsuit. Keiki also reveals that a picture of Koharu of Shima had also captured her in the area of the club room after the cleaning had ended. This meant that Mizuha had placed the letter and hid the locker, and that she was Cinderella the whole time. Mizuha confesses to him, but he cannot accept because they are siblings. She states that their birth dates are too close to each other and that they aren't really siblings, and she kisses him. Keiki wakes up with Mizuha after having a dream of marrying Sayuki after graduating high school. Mizuha hugs him and he feels extremely embarrassed. He runs away from home and calls his father, who confirms that they aren't siblings. He meets Shuma and Koharu for help, but they find his struggle entertaining. Mao meets him with some food and gives him some encouragement. Their dad tells Keiki that Mizuha was adopted after her parents were killed in a car crash, and Mizuha tries to get in touch with him. She finds Keiki has returned after being out in the rain but is sick. While sick, Keiki remembers first meeting Mizuha after she was adopted. The two talk, and Mizuha reveals that she fell in love with Keiki when they first met after she had lost her family. They hug, and Keiki decides that no matter how things have changed, he will still treat her as family. And this is all for this video. Remember to subscribe if you enjoyed it, and I will see you in the next one.